10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 175. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 175 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. My name is Nick Manella. I will be guiding you through this short and concise, but hopefully valuable jazz lesson for you. If you are brand new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. Just a quick note, you can get the PDF to this episode and every other episode that we've ever done over at our Patreon page, and you can find that by going to 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, and that will bring you over to sign up. It only costs you $3 a month to show your support for the show and get all of the valuable materials that we are putting out each and every week to make you a better musician. To everybody that's already a Patreon member, thank you so much for your support. As you know, we could not do this show without you, and those pledges mean the world to us. Keeps this show coming at you week after week. So I've got to give a shout out to some new people. Thank you to Vernon. Thank you to Mark, Bernard, Va, and Katla. Thank you guys so much for signing up to become members of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family. Really appreciate it, and we hope you feel like you are getting your money's worth over there. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Today is going to be a continuation of last week's episode. We're going to keep talking about voice leading, but we're going to talk about it in the context of singing. And I know that this is probably a really uncomfortable thing for a lot of you, which is a big reason why I'm doing it, which is kind of why I'm forcing you to do this. Now, just as a recap, why are we singing? Well, we need to have our ears connected to our instrument. And we really can't sing unless we can actually hear the material that we're trying to sing. So that is the reason why I really, really want you to sing all of this stuff. Maybe sit down at a piano and plunk out the chords or even just the roots of the chords and actually sing these lines that I'm giving you. Or you can use this actual podcast as kind of a play along because I'm going to be demonstrating all of the lines that we're going over. So either one, but I really just want you to make sure that you are in fact singing this stuff. And as I said last week, this may seem a little bit elementary, but I really do think that this is probably the most important stuff that you could be working on are these particular exercises. And the reason why we're doing these is, as I mentioned last week, I'm not somebody who can memorize a bunch of vocabulary and then just kind of regurgitate that vocabulary on stage. So this is an alternate approach for people like me and even people that are really good at that skill of memorizing stuff and then playing it back. This is just going to be simply a way to start hearing the really important notes, singing and playing these smooth lines, and then being able to come up with your own vocabulary, which really at the end of the day is the goal. Memorization and imitation are all really important things that we need to be doing. But at the end of the day, we really want to be developing our own voice, and these exercises are really going to help you with that goal. So last week we did some really, really simple whole note exercises. So this week we're going to take it a step further and we're going to make these exercises half notes. And we're going to add some extra notes outside of just the 3 and 7 that we did last week and start getting you to find other notes in the scale and chord and start forming more of a melody, rather than just singing 2 half notes that go either on the same pitch and then down a half step or move in half steps and, resolve very simply. We're going to be keeping that same template, but we're going to be adding a couple of notes. So the degree of difficulty is ratcheting up just a tiny little bit this week. And if this is a little bit harder for you, takes you a little bit longer, that's to be expected. All right, so grab your PDF and let's start going through these exercises. So, as I mentioned before, these exercises are built off of last week's exercises, so they're going to sound somewhat familiar. You're just going to notice that we are adding a few things. So, let's take a look at exercise number 1. Now, the whole point was that we realized that the third of the 2 chord of the D minor 7 chord is the same as the 7th of the G7 chord, and then that's going to lead us by half step into the third of the C major 7 chord. So we have 2 common tones, and then we resolve down a half step to the third. So 3, 7, 3. Now what I've done is I've added a passing tone on the second half of the first measure. So we're going down to the 9th of the 2 chord. That's going to bring us down to the 5th of the 5 chord, to a D. Then we're going to jump up to that 7th that I mentioned, and then resolve it down to the 3. So this is going to be much more melodic than last week's. And the toughest part about this one is going to be jumping from the 5th up to the 7th at the end of the line here. Let me play it for you once first, and then I'm going to have you sing it. So here's what it sounds like. 3, 4. Listen to it one more time. 3, 4. Okay, now that you've heard it twice, I want you to sing it. Here's your starting pitch, and you will sing along. 3, 4. All right, so there's exercise number 1. I hope you can hear how much more melodic that is, how much more interesting it is than just playing the same note twice and going down to the third. All right, second example, we were doing the 7th of the 2 chord, down a half step to the 3rd of the 5 chord, and then we were staying on that note, which is the major 7 of the 1 chord. So what I've done is I've started on that 7 of the 2 chord, C, and then I've gone actually up to the root. Then we're getting our jump down to the 3rd of the 5 chord, and then we're just going to sing that 3rd twice, and then we're going to sing it a 3rd time, but it's going to be in a different context over the 1 chord. So here's what this one sounds like. 3, 4. Let me play that for you one more time. 3, 4. Okay, now I'd like you to sing it. Here's your starting pitch. Here we go. 3, 4. All right, awesome. So now moving into exercise number 3. Now what happens is we're resolving to a minor 1 chord. So we know that the 7th has to be that flat 7 now. So it's almost the same exercise. We're starting on the 7th of the 2 chord, going up to the root, just as we did before. But now we're going to stay on that D, which is the 5th of the 5 chord. We're going to jump down to the 3rd, just as we did last time. But now we have to resolve down a half step to the 7th of that minor 1 chord. So it's going to sound a little bit different, and it's going to be a little bit more of a challenge for you to sing. Here's what it sounds like. 3, 4. Let me play it for you one more time. 3, 4. All right, now I'd like you to sing it. Here's your starting pitch. 3, 4. Great. So hopefully you can hear that's a little bit different, but hopefully you're still with us here. And then the final one, we are dealing with the minor 1 chord again. And this goes back to kind of exercise number 1. It's that same concept. It actually is the exact same line as exercise number 1, only we are going to resolve it to the minor 3rd. So now when you get that F in the second half of measure 2, instead of going down a half step, now you've got to go down a whole step to the E flat instead of the E natural. And the reason why this is at the end instead of right after exercise number 1 is that, these second 2 exercises we're dealing with the minor. So that's why it's kind of spaced apart. So let's check out how this sounds, and it will sound different than exercise number 1. 3, 4. Listen to it one more time. 3, 4. All right, now I'd like you to sing it. Here's your starting pitch. Here we go. 3, 4. Good. Excellent. So the beautiful thing about this particular episode is that you're going to get benefit from this no matter what you do. So if you want to go above and beyond and grab the PDF and then sit down at the piano and force yourself to sing these without me actually playing the notes behind you so that there's no safety net, you have to find those pitches yourself, that would be the best thing to do. But even just like if you're listening to this in your car or at work or whatever, even just singing these along with me while I play them is doing something for you, okay? It's training your voice and your ears to hear those really, really important notes. And you've probably caught on by now, what we're doing is we're slowly making these lines more and more complicated. We're starting from like the base concept, which is, good voice leading, starting from whole notes, and we're just going to start moving and developing vocabulary by slowly making them more complicated. And by the end of this 4 or 5 part series, you're going to be singing these incredibly difficult lines. But since we were taking it slowly and going little by little, it's going to feel really easy. And I know that some of you don't believe me, but that's the whole point of this stuff, is that you need to realize that it's going to happen for you. You just need to follow this kind of step-by-step program, which we are doing here on the podcast. All right. If you've got any questions, definitely drop me a note in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group, or you can email me 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. Hang in there with me on this stuff. I know this is like taking a step outside of our normal, everyday type of lessons that we do on here. But I promise you, this was one of the most important things in my development as a musician. I would not be anywhere near where I am today without doing exercises like this. So even though we haven't quite seen the light at the end of the tunnel yet, stick with me, do these exercises, do them, sing them. Even if it goes against everything in your being to actually do this, do it. I promise you it will pay off in the end. All right. See you next week with some brand new episodes. Hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.